Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? I have the brilliant musician. His name is Charles Moothart. His album Black Holes Don't Choke came out back in March. So if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to it yet, I suggest you listen to it. If you like fuzzy psychedelic guitars, kind of the ilk of if you listen back to late 70s CBGB style of music, Maxis Kansas City, all those awesome garage synth psych bands that came through, Charles has now fallen into my nostalgia part of the world, where taking something that's has an old style of a sound but bringing it forth with their own flair so it can be new again, so it's nostalgic. So I'm really excited to have you here, Charles. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. And I really like the concept of nostalgia. I like that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't ever want to be considered a nostalgia act. So I kind of came up and I, when you hear something, especially someone younger tapping into a sound that, was a very vibrant sound, but it wasn't overly popular.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't commercialized, let's say,
Right.
the pop term, and making it and bringing it to the forefront with a new style and getting new generations and new people to get into it. That's where nostalgic came from, because I was like, yeah, it's old, but it's new and it just feels different because
Totally.
it's today.
Totally.
So let's dive into that. I mean, what brought you to that kind of psych synth sound that, you've kind of, when I say controlled that sound, you controlled it with Black Holes Don't Choke. That entire album, I already told you, I've listened to it a ton of times, and you kind of, it's a hard sound to harness and keep it running fluent throughout the entire song, but you did a great job of doing that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to that point and why that style was what you felt so forced to go with?
Right. Yeah. Well, no, and I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I kind of smiled to myself when you kind of went to the CBGB's thing, because it's when you said that, it made me happy, because honestly, like, Richard Hell, Blank Generation, that's one of my favorite albums, and that's kind of something that I, especially from a guitar playing standpoint, like something that just the guitar playing on that record is something that I try to reference a lot for like inspiration, for kind of off the wall guitar solos or whatever, and then obviously a lot of the like more crazy late 70s, just like fuzzy guitar freak out stuff. So that definitely, it was kind of spot on for me. And then just kind of the rest of the sonics of this album. I mean, nostalgia is a fun concept for me to kind of play with right now, because like for what you're saying and what I'm thinking about, because, I did want this album to feel current, but also, obviously I try to wear my influences like on my sleeve. I try to be as aware of what I'm doing, and try not to like, overly, first of all, fetishize things, or also, I don't know, like make things feel too sacred, or like, I like to, if there's a sound I'm going for, I try to just be like, own it and go for it, and try to take the emotions or the sounds that I want to convey, and just not try to think too much about like whether or not I am tapping too much into like a 70s rock sound, or a late 70s punk sound, or like an 80s new wave sound, or something like that. And this album did have a lot of those kind of personal reflective moments where I would be working on a song and have to kind of take a step back. And, since I made it all by myself, and I did have friends, and my girlfriend was listening to a lot of mixes, so I will credit where credit's due. People were listening to the things I was making and giving me their input. But for the most part, I was alone in making this album, and I did have to kind of like try to listen to things with a critical ear and go like, okay, is this working? Am I getting the point across without sounding too cheesy or something, or too heavy handed or whatever? And especially with some of the synthesizers and like samplers and drum machine stuff, that it's still pretty limited in how it shows up in the album, but it's definitely there, and that's definitely something I had to try to stay in touch with as I kind of went down that creative avenue, and wanting to make sure that it was translating through my voice as opposed to sounding like I was getting too all over the place and trying to tackle too many different sounds within a short amount of time. It was definitely a big thing for myself, but I wanted to also allow that to unfold because I felt like that was what was going to give this album the sense of new and now, was that you take all these elements and you throw them together, and that's what this album sounds like today,
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on a couple things there that, one thing is about wearing your influences on your sleeve. That is fantastic. But at the same time, I love how you brought into, saying that you're telling your own kind of personal story through it, and it's you, because sometimes I get upset when I know someone has certain influences, kind of because at the end of the day, when they finish doing what they're doing, they sound exactly who their influences were. So
Sure.
you kind of sometimes have that tightrope that you have to fucking balance of,
Absolutely.
yes, these are my influences, but I want to take from it, but I don't want to become it. And that's really hard to do for people that don't understand. It is a really hard thing to do, to be like, okay, this is where I'm pulling from. I'm getting these influences, but making it sound unique to you is a very tough thing to do. And I have to commend you on it. You kind of did that, because I can tell where the influences came from, but at the same time, I knew it was you.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, no, I mean, that's a huge hurdle for me in recent years with just making anything, is that, more and more I'm trying to be, it's not even, I mean, for anybody who's creative, I think getting comfortable with your, like, especially for, let's just talk about singing for a second or whatever, like getting comfortable with hearing your own voice is one thing, but also just having the perspective that, like, you sound how you sound, your imperfections will be there, unless you're a perfectionist or whatever, you're going to sound like, I don't know, fucking whoever. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
you can't, if you're gonna be the person that accepts that you're not perfect and that you're gonna fuck up, you're gonna have all these things, like, just having that self-awareness, I think, is a skill that I'm really working on, because I would always say this to other people I collaborated with, where I'd be like, someone would do a vocal take and they'd say, I don't know, I kind of fucked this up or whatever, and it's like, I would hear it and I would say, well, that's what makes it cool, and you should try to hear it from hear it from not yourself. And those are the kinds of things that I try to take on to myself with this album, because I do feel like in previous records I've made or things I've tried to do, like, I hear these things I did where I was like, oh, I was trying to sound like someone other than myself, and that became the most, like, glaring thing to me, where maybe that's not the case for other people to listen, but, like, for me, that's what stood out to me and started to make me, like, kind of cringe, as I was like, why couldn't I just own me? Like, that's what I love about some of my favorite albums, is, like, you can tell the instrumentation or the singing or whatever, it's like the point was to lean into, this is me and this is what I sound like. So that was a huge mission statement for this record. So it's nice to hear you say that. It's nice to feel like that kind of translates in a certain way, but it's also, that is a really scary and a weird thing to do. It's weird to try to be self-aware while being, like, just allowing that awareness to just kind of be fluid. It's a really strange thing to be critical while also being like, but I am me, and I just need to let it be what it's going to be. You got to pick your battles or whatever.
Yeah, and that's so hard for, again, people that don't understand it. It is really hard because innately we're all self-critical, right? We
Sure.
all try to, no matter how you want to label it, as a perfectionist or whatever we're going to call it, but everybody has that sense of, oh, it can always be better, right? So as singing, as you bring that up, like your voice, you always kind of know where you screwed up, even though somebody else doesn't. Or
Right. Oh, totally. Yeah.
it's so tough because you feel it. It didn't work, but to 90 million people, they never fucking caught it. So it's really hard to make that choice to be like, yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Because it's so hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because in retro, this was a big learning experience for me, was that, like, and there was a few, like, especially like with my first solo record under CFM, Still Life of Citrus and Slime, like, that, to me, that is a really funny one that I go back to, like, the things with that. Sometimes I go back and listen to that record, and the things that when I made it, I was like, oh, this is the strongest part of the record, versus the things I thought were the weakest parts of the record. Now I go back and it's almost flipped because now I can hear it with a different ear. And I'm like, oh, the parts where I sound like I'm teetering off the rails, like that's the most interesting part of this, thing. And it's just, yeah, it's funny because sometimes, yeah, like to you, you'll hear it as a mistake if it's the thing you made, but maybe to someone else, that's actually the coolest part. And you just think about like, I don't know, like obviously like Iggy Pop is like a funny one to reference because I could not even begin to comprehend if and when he even thinks that he makes a fucking mistake, because he obviously in my mind is a,
Yeah,
is a god.
I don't think he ever thought
Yeah,
about it. For some
exactly. But
reason,
it's like if
I
you
don't
think
think he
about like,
thought about it.
yeah, exactly. But it's like if you think about like a point in a record where like if his voice cracks or like like that's the part that you're gonna go like, oh shit, that draws you right into the room with him, and then so it's like those are the kinds of things that like you think of it, that like it's hard to let go of. And it's also like, I don't know, whatever, it's also maybe not for everybody, and who knows, everyone has a different relationship to it, so you can't really like compare. But it is like important to remind yourself of that and just be like, I don't know, like sometimes you just got to let things fly. And, it's just, and that goes for everything. It goes for drums, it goes for guitar, it goes for everything on a record, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how hard must it be to be like an artist that's been doing it for so long and just constantly always finding like the perfect imperfections in what you do? Like it's
Yeah.
so crazy.
I mean, it's
Things
ridiculous.
will take on a life of its own. And that's the big thing too, that I look at, especially when it comes to music, is once it's all recorded and out there and said and done, yeah, you can go back and remaster and remix things and fucking do all the stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's that initial thing, those imperfections that people will gravitate to.
Sure.
And, because it no longer belongs to you. I say it all the time. Once you put it out there in the universe, guess what? It's not yours anymore.
Right. No,
Someone's
totally.
finding something about it that
Yeah.
they fell in love with.
Yeah, and especially when you're making music, like for me, making like rock and roll music, and trying to, you really got to remember sometimes that like, yeah, like this music is, I think that this record, I think with Black Holes Don't Choke, I definitely was tapping more into like some more pop sensibilities or whatever, but still it's rock and roll, and rock and roll is supposed to be live feeling. It is supposed to be imperfect. It doesn't mean that you should settle for overly sloppy if that's not what you're going for, or that you shouldn't. Like, I always want to push myself to do the best I can because I'm asking people of their time and their energy and their ears to listen to this thing. But at the same time, the imperfections, essentially, I mean, to be imperfect is to be human. Therefore, an imperfection does humanize something, which is the point of rock and roll music. It's meant to be like a human experience, so it's a funny balance for sure.
Without a doubt. Now, let's start very young in your life when music first kind of became a part of it. It's a twofold thing. I always ask, do you remember the first time you heard music and it made you kind of stand up as a child and be like, oh, what is this? And then there's another point where after that point comes when you just say, okay, now I know what it is, and this did it.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because I have a very, I have an older sister who's like 4 years older than me. And she's always been really into music, and especially like she turned me on to a lot of good things, but also like she was mostly into like hip hop was kind of something that was bigger on her radar when I was younger. My mom always was into music. She had a ton of like when I grew up, like my parents still kind of had their records out in the house. I didn't have like a record player anymore, but they had their records out for a while. And then it was just my mom had a massive CD collection. So like, she's always had very good, like she turned me on to like The Who, and my dad was like a big Black Sabbath fan. Back in the day, he was not really like, when I was younger, he kind of was more off music, but point being like, I definitely had a family that was pretty musical without being musician. Like none of them really played instruments, but they were musical, and so I definitely have like funny memories of hearing like, fucking like Chronic 2001 or something like that. Like when I was a kid and being like hyped, and, my mom would like show, like I said, my mom showed me The Who. And I remember my dad, like one time, like when I was a kid, he was like playing air guitar to like Fairies Wear Boots, and he was like, Charles, this is what guitar sounds like. He was definitely intoxicated at the time, but I was like, it was definitely like this amazing moment of me being like, whoa, I'd never seen him like react to music that way. And I remember being like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, what is happening right now? So, those were definitely like formative, experiences. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't know though. I definitely, I don't want to sound like I didn't listen to like a bunch of trash as well. I was like a kid, obviously, but, those were definitely like, I feel lucky to have had some of those be like those formative things in like early years. And then I don't know. I mean, I started kind of getting into like punk music when I was, like 13, 14, kind of like gravitating towards this like identity that I didn't really fully understand, like kind of getting into like Nirvana, which then, made me be like, what is punk? What is this thing that I'm like trying to comprehend as like a child, basically,
I call it the gateway to greatness.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And for people that don't understand, punk comes up so much on the show. We're not a punk rock show, right? But we have so many punk bands. We have so much different type of music, and it always kind of filters its way through. At some point you get into punk, and that's always what I go back to, is that community that it created. And it's the gateway to greatness. It's like a gateway drug. It's like, all right, from here I can learn 3 chords and I can figure it out, and then I can just go on to greatness. And that's why it's so important.
No, totally. I mean, I always think of like that documentary Punk Attitude or whatever, and it's like that was. I mean, this was later in life that I saw that doc, but it's like, that was that it kind of gets defined in that doc. Like I forget who says it. It's definitely, I should know who says it because I feel like it's a very iconic, like Don Letts or something. I don't know, but like I feel like there's this comment where it's like, punk is an attitude, and that's, it's just like this thing where it's like, everyone always, because it's, that's like the funny conversation about punk, is it's like everyone's like, what is punk? It's like, is it the fucking DIY squat house that has like the hardcore shows, or is it the like, the fucking person in 1977 who has the safety pin? It's like this thing where it's like, at the end of the day, like what it is it's this attitude, and it is this concept of music, and like, these of people being like, I can play music the way I want to play music, and I can do it with my people. I can do it with my friends. And you can still be playing, fucking like some super mellow pop song and still have a punk attitude about it, and an approach or an ethos or whatever. So I do think that like, when you strip it down, like I think especially for a developing mind, punk is the ultimate gateway, because it's kind of the ultimate. It's also like the ultimate, like champion of yourself. Like you're like, yeah, you can go do this thing, like just go try, fuck it. Like it might not work, but who fucking cares? Just try. And then if it doesn't work, try again, So I agree with you. I think it's totally the gateway to almost to just like any self-expression. I think that anybody, like, if you were to like try to like triangulate like a punk ethos, like you could probably triangulate that to like every great creative mind,
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, it let you be yourself. That's the way I always looked at it, is it didn't matter what you looked like, who you were. One of my an old movie, SLC Punk, like that movie, and having Jason Segel, I think, was in that at the time. Tall guy, dorky with glasses, but he's with the guy with a mohawk hanging out, and like it didn't matter who you could be whoever you wanted. And I always thought that was just the acceptance, like the fact that you're there, you're already accepted. Doesn't matter what you're doing, who you look like it didn't matter. It's just like, yeah, you're cool, you're here. And that's why having that gateway is so important, and for kids that nowadays coming up that may not know about it or feel it, they at one point they're going to go through it, which is pretty cool.
Totally. And I mean, that especially as it gets harder for younger people to have access to like, I mean, I just think about like DIY spaces, and, obviously there still is a strong scene of that, but I can only hope that continues to exist as things get harder to like, maintain physical space. Like it's expensive and all that stuff to like have these physical experiences with a physical community, not on the internet, not on a, it's like just being like at a show and being like, oh yeah, like that support, that feeling of support and that kind of validation of being like with your peers or people you look up to, or then turning into the person, the elder of of that scene. You know what I mean? It's like, that's such an important, like, it's like a history,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment you decided that, like, hey, I'm gonna make a go at this, and what instrument you were gonna start on? And was it one of those things? I always go back because I was forced into piano lessons as a kid.
Yeah.
Always one of those regrets that you wish you stayed with it when
Oh
you're
yeah.
as old as I am now. But like,
Yeah.
were you forced into anything, or did you have a choice other than maybe school band where everybody had to do something?
Yeah, no, I did similarly. I definitely was. I was guided. I wouldn't say totally forced because I was down. I remember I got to play piano when I was young, and I remember just being excited that I got to have like a little Casio keyboard at home. I was like, yeah, so that made me excited. But I very quickly stopped practicing and very quickly realized I didn't want to do that. And then my sister at one point tried to learn. So my sister did play flute for a second, and then she did want to try to learn acoustic guitar, and that kind of died down really quickly for her. And then I picked that up like a couple years later when I was probably like 10. I like got really interested in the guitar that was sitting around our house. And then, a couple years later, my parents were like, all right, cool. We'll get you some lessons and see if this thing works out. And so, similarly, like I kind of put that down and didn't want to practice as a kid. But then I also had these friends who wanted to start a band. And this is when we were in like middle school. So, probably like 12, 13, we were like playing at my friend's house. And that was when I kind of picked back up guitar.
What was the name of that band?
It was called The Movement. I think we were originally called the M16s. I don't know why that name came up, but then it became The Movement.
Okay.
Yeah. So
because band names in middle school were more important than the band itself.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I have a distinct memory when my buddy was like, "We should be called The Movement now," and I was like, "That sounds cool." Yeah. So then that. But then when after that, kind of going into high school, meeting some like more people that were kind of like some older kids that were doing some cool stuff, playing house parties around town, blah, blah, blah. And, that's like Ty and all like that crew of people that I ended up falling in with there. But like, I also started a band with my girlfriend, my high school girlfriend, and my really good friend at the time. And I played drums, but that was like the first time I ever played a drum kit. And so my cousin had been a drummer. I knew there was a drum kit in storage. My parents reluctantly brought my cousin's drum kit to my house for me to try. And then next thing you know, like my parents' basement basically just became the place where like me and my friends would play music all the time. And they actually they ended up loving that part of it. Like they loved watching us like kind of find our way through this world of like, teenage bands. But yeah, I think drums were really the time where I that was where I started playing music and playing in bands with people that like wanted to go play shows. And that's when we started coming up to LA and like playing at the Smell and doing all this stuff, like where I was finally surrounded by, also not finally surrounded by, but like we were young and just having kids that could drive a car and be, we were able to move and do these things. And that was kind of like the genesis of all that. And then that was similarly funny because no one had seen me. No one even knew I played guitar. I remember one day we like started one of our 1 million bands that we always would start on like a daily basis. And I think I played drums on the recording, but then they were like, "Oh, someone needs to do a guitar solo on this thing." And I was like, "I could try," and they're like, "Okay." Like everyone was just, no one cared. And then I'd like played this guitar solo that everyone was just like, "What the fuck, dude? You play guitar?" And I was like, "Yeah, I play guitar." And they're like, "Whoa, what the," and then I still was playing drums in all the bands after that. But like, I just remember like everyone being like, "Whoa," no one even knew I played guitar. And it's funny to think back to that because like, yeah, drums were definitely the entry point, for being like in like the crew of band people, trying to do that thing.
Well, drummers, I mean, come from a household of drummers. My wife was a drummer. I was a
Okay.
drummer, and you know, we're finicky people. We're really hard to get along with, and we're hard to find. It's hard to
Yeah,
find a good drummer, right? So
totally.
it's, you know, what's always good is you're always in high demand. You can basically, as a drummer, I would always tell people, I'm like, you can always find a band to play in because everyone always needs a drummer.
No, totally. Totally. And I also, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because, you know, especially like I think back to like that time period. And that was, like I said, like that was when I was first kind of like getting tight with Ty, and you know, he was always like, when I watched him play drums, I was always just like blown away, you know, and that was like a funny back and forth that we kind of, that I feel lucky and also kind of spoiled by like that experience too, is that from the time I was, you know, 14, 15, I mean 16 really, but like that, like I was tight with a crew of people that included this other person who was also down to, who could shred on drums and also write really cool songs on guitar, and we could trade off and be like, oh shit, like what do you want to play today? And you know, we were always just like starting new bands with people, and just like it was just always about flipping around, you know. But especially like forming that relationship to drums, and just generally like even now, like yesterday I was at band practice and I was talking to Marley, who plays drums with me, and we were talking about like backlining a kit, and you know, and he was just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like blah blah blah. And it's just like, I was like, dude, first of all, I hate fucking sharing my kit. So like, you know, it's just like, it's funny to be like a drummer too, who can also just like look at another drummer and be like, just know that I understand you. And
Yeah.
like, and you can always speak freely to me and be like, I don't want to do that. And I will be like, absolutely, I will make that, not, I will do everything in my power to make that go how you want it to, because I know what it's like to be the drummer and not wanting to have to fucking reset up your shit. So,
Yep.
you know, I don't know. It's funny. I mean, drummers, I will always identify as a guitar player, but I will probably always think as a drummer from the perspective of like planning things, you know, which is funny now.
Listen, it's one of those things. It's like a training. If you're going to be proficient in playing a lot of different instruments, might as well start with the hardest one, and the one that you have to lug the most by
Oh my God,
yourself on and off a stage.
totally. The most
So
physical, it's the most physical demand. I mean, it becomes comical at times, but yeah.
yeah, you know, you could just be a singer, just wraps up his microphone cord and then goes to the bar and waits for everybody else to load up the
Yeah, yeah.
van.
Just
I mean, it's
throw your 58 in your pocket and you're out.
yeah. You know, getting into starting to play live and stuff. I mean, do you remember the first time you ever performed live, and like where it was and what it was? Like,
Oh yeah.
and let's look at this. Let's put it this way: in front of strangers, people who were there to judge what was going on, not family members or friends, but you
Right.
know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then that kind of makes it for an interesting one. Cause one of the first times I really remember doing what I would consider more to like play for strangers, was my, yeah, that high school band with like my girlfriend at the time, and like my buddy, and we came up and played in LA. I don't even know, how many strangers were actually there, because I definitely know that like my parents were like, okay, we have to see this, because at the time, like the guy who sang and played guitar, like he would strap headphones to his head and he would sing through the headphones as the microphone, and so it was just like we were definitely influenced by the whole like smell 2000s kind of like synth punk whatever like thing. It was a funny vibe. But we played at like some sushi restaurant in LA. I don't even know how we got the show. I was literally like 15 years old, and I don't even know how we got this show. You know, my girlfriend was 16, she could drive, so she drove us up there. um and I just remember those like that time period of my life, like I said, I can't even remember how many people were there, but it didn't even matter. Like the fact that we were even just playing a show and it was like in LA, and we like someone asked us to do it, and like probably on MySpace or something, you know, and I just remember being like, I didn't care. I just was so fucking stoked to like go play, and played like drums in front of people and just like wail, you know, that like it just didn't even matter. And then like literally it's funny to even try to think back and process it, because like it's almost like a blur of whether or not anyone was even in the room, you know, other than I know that we played with another band, so I know there was at least one band in the room, you know. But yeah, otherwise, like I also, yeah, like it was really like this, the smell scene was definitely like huge for me. Like Jim, who runs the smell, like when I was like 15 years old, like I like emailed him and he let me book a show at the Smell. I'd never booked a show before. And like, that was like a huge transformative experience for me too. Like that's like, yeah, like having someone give you that trust to like book a show and show up and play to 5 people on like a fucking Sunday or something, in LA. And it's like, yeah, that was big. That was definitely a big one for me, and I will always be appreciative for what he offered to me and to everyone I know in LA who went to the Smell and all that. Like those were like, so that was such an important place for everybody.
Well, and I just even talking about it now, I could tell how important it is to you, and how important there are people in the world like that are always, it doesn't matter what. Hey, listen, we're gonna forge forward. You want to try this? Yeah, let's try it. And just always standing behind someone is a big thing, and I'm a huge proponent of that. It's kind of why I do this show too, like just helping people get the word out there. If you're uber talented and I like your music, let's fucking go. Like,
yeah, no, I mean,
let's do this.
That's huge.
And I love to hear the way you talk about someone like that,
Mhm.
because it is very important and people need to understand that and know that. So I
Oh my God,
appreciate you.
yeah. Totally. No, and same. Like, I mean, I appreciate, I'm so appreciative, and I feel like I try to maintain that, um, even more and more as especially walking through just the world these days. Like, yeah, like so much information is out there on one hand, but at the same time, like, it's not easy to like, keep people's attention, and B, like I think that it's hard to like even just reach people sometimes. And so, yeah, like having someone want to like talk to me about what I do and like, get into the kind of inner workings of how things go. It's like, yeah, like that means the world to me, because like I said, like I try to be aware of the fact that like I make things for people to listen to, and I do care. I can't pretend that I don't care, and I want people to check it out. So someone giving me your time, I'm endlessly appreciative too. I mean, because that's what we're all here for. Like we're all here to kind of like learn about each other and try to just like, yeah, like enjoy the things that we all put out there. And the only way to do that is if people hear it straight from your mouth, so
Yeah, no, and that's my theory. Everyone has a story and they're all worth being heard.
yeah, that's
And
amazing.
it's trying to listening to you talk about forming the bands as a young kid and learning how to play instruments. Like this is my fun part of my day, meeting someone
Amazing.
new and
Yeah.
learning something about someone across the country, and that just because I enjoy their music, and now it's my whole strangers to friends things. Like in music, there's no strangers; they're just friends you haven't met yet, and that's
I
what
like
I
that.
always I
Yeah.
love about it.
Yeah, totally.
Now, going back to your formative years growing up with music and everything, do you remember the first concert you ever went to? And sometimes they're different, so the first concert you ever went to and the first one you got to pick, because a lot of times
Right.
I was dragged by my family to things that I
Yeah,
don't
no,
like.
totally. The strongest memory I have, strongest early memory I have of seeing a concert was, so I grew up in Laguna Beach, California, and in that town there was like the local hero, like reggae rock band called Common Sense, and I think they played a show in like the park. It was like a free show in the park kind of thing. And that is the first time I remember seeing a band play live. And I don't remember. I have a very funny memory of like a kid I knew back then, like dancing to the music. Like that's kind of the extent of my memory of the thing. I just know that it happened and that I was there. um, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, like as far as like concerts that I first like chose to go to, I don't know. I mean, I definitely remember seeing like Green Day when I was in middle school. But I feel like the most like standout, like if I were to really go into like what I would consider to be like actual formative experience, was, so my birthday is the day before my dad's birthday. And there was this amazing lineup of, it was at the House of Blues of Anaheim, and on my birthday, August 3rd, I think this is when I was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school. My birthday, the Violent Femmes played, and the next day Devo played. And we went to both of those shows, like on my birthday and then on my dad's birthday. And those two shows were like seeing Devo, that Devo set was like, I was a fan at the time, like, but not even, obviously, I mean, I was fucking a kid,
Yeah.
but like that shit blew my mind. Like Devo, when that to this day is probably one of the best shows I've ever seen. Cause they were just on fire, they were like totally all about it. And that's like it was a pretty small room to see them in. So yeah, I feel like that always kind of stands out to me as like, yeah, one of the more like life-changing live show experiences. Specifically Devo, but even Violent Femmes. I mean, Violent Femmes put on a great show, and that was, at that point, seeing those, and like those two shows juxtaposed within 24 hours of each other, I think was pretty like rattling for me. Like it was like, whoa, this is like, these are two wildly different experiences, and still so like raw in such an interesting way,
Yeah, I love how you it's a side bit story, but so the other day, I found a picture of the first time I saw Green Day. And it was them standing outside the venue the day of the show. And to put it in perspective of how old I am, it was from October 1st, 1993 at the Roseland Ballroom, opening for Bad Religion.
Amazing.
That was the first time I saw it, and I found the picture and I sent it to my friend who I was there with. I was like, dude, look what I just found.
Yeah.
He's like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, dude, that's the first time we saw Green Day.
That's amazing.
All right, so let's dive into your music right now to the point of where you are currently. Mm-hmm. And this is a question where I'll probably ask another question after you answer it, but if you only have one chance, you're in front of, say, the biggest record producer in the world, and you got to play him one of your songs. What song of yours are you playing?
Interesting. I mean, I think that I'd be torn right now between like the two. So actually no, the song that still just kind of stands out to me right now as like, if I were to think about where I'm wanting my kind of trajectory to go, I mean, hold on, the second song on my record.
go. We will return from time to time. But there's no savior. Recheck the tables in their eyes.
My new record, like, to me, that's like, I think that I'm getting closer to a balance of some really to me, like, interesting concepts that are just fun to mess around with, like, as far as kind of like chopping up my own playing and trying to find a more of like a pocket with kind of rhythm, and the melody is still, it's still trying to work all these ideas together while, like, maintaining my own sound and voice, whether voice being my actual voice or voice on guitar or voice on drums or whatever. I think that would be one, even if it was just for the sake of being like, hey, where would you run with this? And that's the interesting thing for someone like me right now, is that, like, I feel pretty excited about, like, where my musical output is going, but I'm also trying to be real about, like, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that that's like an interesting one, as someone who plays all the instruments and records everything as yourself, like, and which is what I did with this record and my record before. But it's like, I think that I like to be in control, and I like to be DIY about it. But I also I'm more and more, I'm trying to be like, okay, well, where are my weaknesses, and how could someone's input help me through that? And whether or not that's, whether or not, to, like, kind of go back to your question, like, whether or not that is the, like, mega record producer or whatever, like, still I'd be interested to be like, hey, what would you have changed about this, or where would you go with this, or what are you hearing that I'm missing, or something, which is
that's I've just started throwing that record producer thing in there, because it's always, I want to get the perspective of something that you're kind of proud of, that you want people to hear. It was always, if someone never heard your music, what would you play for them? And not knowing what they like. Now I've been, like, gearing it towards a record producer style, because it kind of makes me feel out what you're most proud of, to be like, hey, this is who I am.
No, totally.
And that leads me to my next question, because it could be different. Is that your favorite song that you released, or is there something different?
I mean, to me, that is it's the one that means it to me. It's kind of the crux of this creative moment that I'm in and coming through. It does feel like it's one that I am the most excited about, the kind of the through line, or, like, the trajectory of, like, where I can take my music right now. I don't know if it's necessarily, like, my favorite one. I think that, like, Little Egg might fall more in, like, the favorite category, because it represents, like, a lot of different emotions and like, textures that I really enjoyed. The journey of making that song. It took, I wrote that song over a period of many years, just in the sense that I would always go back to it, and never really figured it out fully. And by the time I recorded it for this record, it really felt like I found the space it was wanting to exist in. And I think that just the messaging of that song means the most to me, I think, right now, just given the state of the world. But I do think that Hold On is definitely, like, from a, like, and also to kind of go back to what we were talking about before, like, from, like, a pop sensibility, like, to me, that's me trying to be like, cool, let me take, like, what would be kind of more of my, like, cliche or quintessential, like, fuzzy riff, and how do I make it a little more funkadelic instead of Black Sabbath, and how do I make it a little bit more poppy instead of noisy, and trying to blend these things together like that to me, which is like the exciting moment that I'm in, is kind of trying to figure out where the ship is headed.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I love that. And it's been a while, but the first time that neither of those songs are the ones that I would play for someone or are my favorite. It doesn't. I'm not, and that's not me shitting on it. I'm just saying, like,
No,
I
totally.
have my own perspective of what I fell in love with and the complexities of the song. Mine that I've already played for people, and I'm like, hey. Because it always starts with a song. Everything in your life starts with a song. So I always send a song of like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Mine's Anchored and Empty. Like
Love
that's my song where I'm just like, this is what this dude's about.
I love that.
You'll get it from this fucking song. And if you don't, you suck. So like
no, that's sick, dude. I mean, honestly, yeah, that song to me definitely is like when I'd love to hear that, because to me that song does feel what I would say feels almost the safest. Like when I made that, and when I say the safest, I mean from my own perspective, because I know that like I love that fucking riff. I love playing that song with my band, and I'm really stoked on like all the shit I did with like the vocals. Like I tried to emulate the like I forget what Black Sabbath song it is, but like the fading in of the vocals before the vocal line. That's like totally lifted from a Black Sabbath song, and I'm spacing on the fucking name of the song. But whatever. It's sick to hear you say that, because honestly, yes, that song means so much to me. And to me, that is like, when I wrote that song, I was like, this is the side A closer. I mean, to me, that where you put a song means a lot. It's like you're making a statement with it. And to me, that song is super strong, but it also it feels to me, when I say the safest, it's like, it just means that I leaned into the, like, this is me. And if you do fuck with what I do, this song is you're gonna fuck with this song, so
yeah. No,
so what you said totally makes sense, and I'm stoked to hear that is the song you would choose to show people first.
Yeah, and for me, the big thing about it is there are complexities to it that show the range of what sometimes I think an artist doesn't know that they're trying to do, but makes it magically happen anyway, and lets it go. And that's exactly what I think that song did for me. I was like, fuck, now I can fuck with this song. Now I can like, there it is. It's everything I want from this guy. And he just did it in one song. And whoever hears this is going to love every single thing.
Love that. I mean, that means a lot to me. So that's what's up.
All right. So here's a personal question, and you're allowed to have more than one. I don't want to go down a laundry list. I'm not going to give you top 10 or anything, but a band in your life that never lets you down. Rolling Stone categorizes it as your favorite band. I don't. I categorize bands by bands that never let me down. Something that when I don't know what I want to listen to, I just always find myself turning that on until I find something else while I'm doom scrolling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, interesting. I'm definitely my brain goes to like a few different things right now. I admittedly, I'm really big on, like, for instance, I'll just go straight to like one of the records, like Liquid Swords to me is like one that will never let me down. Like, and Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang world will never let me down. So that's definitely one answer. The Groundhogs classically the Groundhogs are a band that for me, like, I can throw on, Thank Christ for the Bomb or Split and I'm always going to be fucking stoked to listen to those songs and those records. And in entirety, I can listen to them top to bottom and pretty much never feel burnt out on it. And then, like, I don't know, I've also like in the last like few years, I've kind of branched out more to, I don't like saying world music because it sounds degrading or whatever, or not degrading, but
it pigeonholes because it makes someone think of, and because when I grew up, what world music was. It was just like stuff from Africa.
Right,
So
exactly.
like,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's saying that there's only Western music and then the rest of the world or something. But
yeah.
so, but no, like specifically, like cumbia has been something that's been really interesting to me, and so like listening to like One Echo Isu Combo, like that's been something that for me I've really like I can throw that record on most. I wouldn't say like 100% of the time, but I'll say about like 80% of the time I can throw some that record on and just be hyped, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like I've been in kind of yeah, like a kind of like a total reshifting of my brain in the last like few years with the things that, you know, like I said, like groundhogs, that's probably just been like the answer. That's just been an easy answer for me and still true.
Well, I love that you're going with like the groundhogs. For people who don't know, the groundhogs are like, I think they came out in 68,
Yeah.
1968. And to hear you be like, I love that. Like, I
Yeah.
love for a younger guy to just be like, yeah, no, that's it.
I
Like,
mean,
I love that.
it has all this stuff that like, I mean, I think also just like kind of echoing a lot of things we've covered today. I mean, like, you know, like when you listen to T.S. McPhee's guitar playing and his singing, you know, it's all, and all the instrumentation of that band. I mean, everything is so like right out front, you know, like, and you listen to the drumming, there's multiple points where there's kind of these weird drum flubs, but the flubs are what accent the fact that this drummer is fucking ripping, you know. And it's like, because you're like, holy shit, everything that's been happening has been fucking perfect until that one time where you hear like a rim hit or a stick hit or like kind of a flub in the fill, and you're like, oh my god, this is all so raw and right up front. And the song, like, there's such great songs, you know. And then not only is it like ripping fuzzy guitar solos, but like a lot of those like guitar harmony, just really open, spacious songwriting. You know, it's like they have a lot of, I think they have a lot more nuance and then maybe they're often given credit for. But I mean, maybe not true. Maybe that's why people always just love that band. But yeah, so to me, Groundhogs can do all of the above, especially for just kind of being like a guitar based, essentially power trio vibe, you know?
Yeah. Is there a piece of like music memorabilia or an instrument or something in your life that you have that you could never consider parting with? Anything that has to do with music that you could never consider parting with, or means the most to you, maybe? Like,
Yeah, I mean, my brain immediately goes to my guitar, you know, because my guitar is literally like my child. But let's see, memorabilia. I don't know. I'm trying to think about that. I feel like I get weirdly nostalgic about like shirts, band shirts that I have,
yeah,
especially like my friends' bands.
yeah,
You know, like I'm thinking about like I know that like in my closet I have like a White Fence shirt from like probably the first time that we all went on tour together or something like that. Stuff like that. I don't really have a whole lot in way of like music memorabilia of like bands that I don't know, you know, like bands that I look up that I actually like idolize or whatever.
yeah.
That's just never really been my go-to thing. Like other than records, you know.
Yeah, no, and listen, that can be something too. You know, I have certain records that I don't give. It's one of those things I don't care how much money you offer me, and never get it.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, I definitely have, you know, like I said, my dad was a big Sabbath fan, like when he was, you know, like in the early 70s. So like, I definitely have like between him and my mom, I have their a lot of their old records. And so, you know, if I were to like specifically actually, and you know, more specifically, I'll say my dad, in my dad's record collection, I found a copy of Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do by Hawkwind. And that was before I
Wow.
knew Hawkwind. And my dad always told me that him and my uncle would go and just go to the record store and like they would pick up like, you know, the like bargain bin like promotional copies of like if they like saw on it that it said like guitar bass drums, they were like, fuck yeah, let's try it out, you know, like for 99 cents or whatever the fuck it was. So
Yep.
like, so there were like a lot of these records. Like I remember when Ty first was like looking for Hawkwind records before, like, I feel like it was before, like, I mean, Hawkwind has always been, a cult band. Obviously we weren't ahead of anything, but like, I feel like before there was a lot of like reissues and stuff. So like it was a little harder to find their records. Like I remember him talking about Hawkwind, and then I was like flipping through my dad's records, in San Francisco, cause I had taken a bunch of boxes up, and I found Hawkwind, and I think I like gave Ty that record for like, I think he held on to it for like a year, So to me, that's a pretty important one. I think that would be at the top of the list right there, because that was a big find, and being like, shit, and that record definitely changed our lives and my life pretty significantly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Last question before we get towards the end of our show with our final segment. So this question is your end of the world question. 5 minutes left to live. Meteor's going to crash into the earth, and you have to listen to one song. What one song are you listening to?
Ooh, that's good. Damn, I don't know. There's so many fun answers there. I would say like either I want to go like Stooges, Out on the Street. That just sounds like a fun, like, fuck it, crash and burn song. Mm-hmm. There's also like, going cheesy, like doing like a Europe 72 Morning Dew is like I could probably come to terms with the end of the world right there pretty quickly, if that was going to be the song I was listening to. Oh shit, I mean, or fucking Time We Leave This World Today off that same Hawkwind record that we just talked about. Yeah, I'll leave it with that one. I'll leave it with that one, because that sounds like a good way to just fucking groove out.
All right. Talked your way into it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. All right, man. So before we move on to our final segment, I really want to give you the opportunity right now to tell everybody how to find what it is you're doing. Your opportunity to throw out all your handles and everything that it is for people to find all the music and keep up with. I know you're playing a bunch of shows, so like everything that you're doing, your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your whatever the fuck you want is now your time.
Yeah, the only social media I really have is Instagram, c.f.m_LA. And then, I've been releasing my new music is under my full name, Charles Moothart. And prior it was just CFM, which is my initials. Really just kind of working on getting the band rolling out. And I'm really excited about the band that I have going, and just trying to move forward. Where we guys, played some shows this year, and we're just trying to keep it active. Everyone's pretty busy, plays in a bunch of bands, so just kind of taking it one step at a time at the moment. But it's
That's
all
awesome.
out there. The music's out there, and I'm really looking forward to just playing as many shows as we can.
Well, when you're out on the East Coast, hit me up in New Jersey, and maybe there'll be a place for you to play at that time. So who knows, people? There might be. But before we move on to our final segment, I just want to say thank you again for doing this. But our final segment it's our weekly threes. It's 3 things that you're listening to that you would like people to check out. You give your 3, then I give my 3.
Okay. Interesting. Let me think about this for a second. I'm going to try to look back. I'm just going to go to my recently played situation. Oh, well, actually, this is I have some fun ones to think about. Let's see here. Well, I recently went back and was jamming A Trip to Marineville, a Swell Maps record. I love that record. It had been a while since I really listened to it, and that record just totally fucking rules. Also, a good friend of mine, Lefty Bones is his name. He put out a record a couple years ago, and it kind of went under the radar for me.
Didn't go under my radar.
Okay,
I know it.
Cool. Yeah, I was jamming that the other day because we work together as well. Like we've been homies for a while, but we also work together at Zebulon. He doesn't work there anymore, actually. But the other day we were working, and one of our coworkers was like, dude, have you listened to Lefty's record? And I was like, no, it's kind of crazy because Lefty and I have been talking about making some music together, or like recording some stuff, whatever, forever. Like I love Lefty. But anyways, so he was like, you got to listen to that record. It's really good. I went back and listened to the whole record, like top to bottom. And I was like, fuck, this is a great record. So that's definitely
Cuts Like a Charm, right?
Cuts Like a Charm. Exactly.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that record. And then also friends of my girlfriend and, people, this band, The Follies in Brooklyn. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I know that they're they're all around and playing a bunch of bands, but their new band, The Follies, I went and checked. She recommended that to me, and I listened to it, and I really, really enjoyed listening to that record. So I'll pick those three.
Yeah. They just played a show in the city, in New York City, at Mercury Lounge. So yeah, I know.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Good three. All right, my three for this week. My first one is a band called Fleshwater. The name of the album is We're Not Here to Be Loved. It's kind of, new gaze.
Okay.
Out of Boston, Massachusetts.
Cool.
That's my first one.
Sick.
Next one is a performer band. Don't really know what it is because there's not a lot out there. I mean, the Instagram only has 10 followers.
Okay.
But it's called Dreamer 33. It's Dreamer and the number 33, and it's all one thing there. But the name of the album is Forgotten Memories. I've categorized it as spacey shoegaze post rock. It's just one of those things where if you're sitting around at night with a beer or a bottle of wine by a fire pit, just put it on and you're just going to be like, holy fuck.
Amazing.
Last but not least is a band called A Great Big Pile of Leaves. The name of the album is Pono, P-O-N-O. They're a Brooklyn indie rock band. Those are the three things I've been jamming on this week.
Cool. I'm gonna check all of those out today as I'm driving around doing my random shit.
Nice.
Yeah.
But Charles, so a big heartfelt thank you so much for what it is you do, and that's being the artist that you are, because without your creation, you and I would have never been talking, never met, and it's really important what it is you do. I want you to know what you're doing matters. What you're doing has an effect on people, and don't stop doing what you're doing because you're very good at it. And, just a big, huge thank you for doing that and bringing us together because of your awesome fucking tunes.
No, thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for those words. I can't even describe how much that means to me. And yeah, I mean, I'm just fucking happy to be here, man. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Everybody, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out, listen to Charles Moothart, and have a great fucking time.
Thank you.
Futures running to the past. Money gunning at its back. on its tongue. It's time to scream. What was done? Oh, someone crushed him like a little rain.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.